we're going to look at 6.1 on algebraic expressions and formulas. And hopefully a lot of this is review for you because you may have seen it in a previous class, whether at college or in high school. But we're still going to go through the key pieces because we do need these tools in order to be successful in the later chapters. So in chapter 6.1, we're focusing on algebraic expressions and formulas. And we're going to use variables, of course, in our expressions and in our formulas. So a variable is just a letter that can represent a variety of numbers. So it's just that placeholder for a number in a formula or in an expression. So it just holds that place for a number that we would plug in there. And a combination of variables and numbers using operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division, as well as powers or roots, is called an algebraic expression. So basically an algebraic expression is any combination of numbers and symbols and addition or subtraction signs, division signs, exponents, roots, except for equal signs. Okay. So if you have any sort of combination, whether it has roots or exponents or variables or numbers or operations or parentheses or brackets, it really doesn't matter as long as there are no equal signs. So for expressions, we simplify them, and you usually have variables left over unless you're plugging in a specific value, whereas for equations, we solve to get an answer. So in this section, we're focusing on expressions. Here are some examples of expressions. X plus 2.5, 5 parentheses 4x minus 3, x divided by 5 plus 6, x squared minus the square root of x. Okay, so just some different examples, and notice that they have different combinations of operations here and symbols, but no equal signs. Now, one thing we can do with expressions is to evaluate them. So when you see the word evaluate, basically you're going to plug in a number for the variable. And you're going to simplify so that you can find the value. And see the word, you see value right there, evaluate. So we're basically plugging in a number and see if we can simplify this and find the value for the expression. So formally, evaluating an algebraic expression means finding the value of an expression for a given value of the variable. So for example, we can evaluate the expression 2.5x. So 2.5x is, so I should say ideal, is the ideal distance between you and your TV. So whatever your TV dimension is, right? So if your TV is 50 inches, then you do 2.5 times 50. If it's 32 inches, you would do 2.5 times 32, and so on. So that actually is the ideal distance you should have between you and your TV. Also remember that if there is no symbol in between a number and a variable, it is multiplication. So this means 2.5 times x. So if we want to evaluate for that 50-inch TV, what we're looking for here is 2.5. And then we replace that x with the value of 50 in this case. Again, we have multiplication going on here, so we're going to multiply to get 125 inches. Now, when I evaluate, I do like to use parentheses. So you're going to notice that I wrote it like this. It just helps me remember when I plug things in that a lot of times I have to multiply. So again, when you see two numbers touching with parentheses like this, no plus or minus symbols in between, then we're going to be multiplying. Now, 125 inches, you can use your calculator here, but 125 inches divided by 12 is going to give you that 10.4 for the feet. So remember that 1 foot is 12 inches. So if we divide it by 12, we can transfer that into feet. So ideally, if you have a 50-inch TV, you should be standing over 10 feet away from it, or exactly, I guess, about 10.5 feet away from it, right, for that perfect viewing of that TV. Now, when we evaluate, we do have to use the order of operations to simplify. So this was a pretty straightforward one, but don't forget we have the order of operations, which says to do the following. So we always do all grouping symbols first. So that could be parentheses or brackets. We work inner to outer. If an expression involves fractions, we actually pretend like there's parentheses around the numerator, around the denominator. So you actually would simplify your numerator and denominator first separately and then divide at the end. So that's just kind of a little side note here about the fractions. After you've done parentheses or brackets, you're going to do all your exponents. Then multiplication division comes next. You have to work from left to right there. And the same thing is true for addition and subtraction, always working from left to right. So you go in order of whatever comes first for these two pairs. So here we're going to evaluate. So I'm going to take x equals 6. I'm going to plug it in wherever I see x. So this becomes 7 plus 5, parentheses 6 minus 4 to the third power. And now I'm going to go ahead and use my rule. So the first thing I do is going to simplify the parentheses. When we say parentheses, we mean inside the parentheses. Okay, so inside the parentheses would be the 6 minus 4. Once we do that, now I know I still see parentheses here, but again, I'm talking about inside the parentheses. Now the parentheses are just kind of helping us clarify the problem. So I'm going to do my exponents next. So I'm going to do this 2 to the third power next. Now that means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. So 7 plus 5 times 8. Next, I would do any multiplication or division. Here I just have multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify this first. 5 times 8 is 40. And then finally, any adding and subtracting. So I end up with 47. And notice that I'm just taking it one little step at a time. And importantly, I'm not changing the order of things. So I'm not rewriting this with like the 7 on the end or the 4 backwards or anything like that. It helps to stay in order so that you don't make mistakes. So just do one little step at a time and just keep everything nice and lined up as you're solving. All right, let's do a couple more. So another expression here, we're going to evaluate for -6. So whenever I see an x, I'm going to plug it into both. Now, when I evaluate, I like to use parentheses there because it helps to show me when I'm multiplying right here. And it also helps with my exponents. So when we're squaring, that negative is getting squared as well because we're plugging it in. So this here is -6 times -6. Which is going to be positive 36. Now, again, I know I see parentheses, but when we're talking about the parentheses step, we really mean inside the parentheses. So here, the parentheses are just helping us to see the operations. So I would do the exponents first here, and then my multiplication would be next. 5 times -6 is -30. Now all my multiplication division is done, so I'm going to add and subtract working left to right. So 36 plus -30 is positive 6. And then I could make this plus -3 if I want to. I was kind of doing a little change there. Or if you want to leave it as 6 minus 3, that's also fine. In either case, you're going to get 3 for your final answer. All right, and let's do one more. So here we have two variables we're going to evaluate for, which is fine. So I'm going to use this for my x and this for my y. So for the first group, I have a -2, and then I'm plugging in 4, and then I have that squared. So I'm just replacing this x with the 4. Then I have +5, and again, I'm replacing the x with 4 and the y with -2. Watch out, you have a minus sign there, and then that y becomes a -2. So you have a minus sign and then a negative for your y value. So just watch all those different signs. Now I see lots of parentheses, but nothing inside the parentheses, right? They're just there to help clarify what I've plugged in. This is kind of focusing a lot today. Let's see if I can fix this a little bit. So I'm going to move on to the next step, which is exponents. So be careful. I'm not doing -2 times 4. I'm doing the exponent piece first. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify this 4 squared first. And I'm also going to do this -2 cubed. So 4 squared means 4 times 4, which is 16. And then -2 cubed is -2 times -2 times -2. So that's going to give me a +4 times another -2 is a -8. And you don't have to have parentheses there if you don't want to. I just kind of think it's nice to help show that this is a negative, and you also have a minus sign. So as I go through, next I'm going to do my multiplication and division working left to right. Here I have multiplication first. That's going to be negative 32. Now here again, I have lots of multiplication. I'm just going to do it left to right, one at a time. So here is 20, and then I have 20 times negative 2, which is negative 40. Now, minus and negative becomes a positive, so I am just going to rewrite that as plus 8 to make this a little easier. Next, adding and subtracting from left to right. So here, negative 32 plus negative 40 is negative 72. And then I have negative 72 plus positive 8, which is going to be negative 64. So again, just be really careful. Take your time there. I do want to point out, when you're going left to right, it does make a difference. So for instance, if you had an example that was like this, let's say I had 8 divided by 4 times 2. A lot of students just want to do that 4 times 2 first. It just kind of comes naturally, but that's not the way you want to do it. Remember, adding and subtracting go together, multiplying and dividing go together. So when you have those operation combos, you have to work left to right. So we actually would do this first, which is 2, and then 2 times 2 is 4. So you get a very different answer if you change up the order, which is why I'm just being so careful as I go through and taking my time.